Bismillah. My dear brothers and sisters, I want you to pause for a moment and be honest with yourself. How much of your peace have you lost trying to explain yourself to people who were never meant to understand you? How much of your energy has been drained by arguments Allah never asked you to enter? And how often have you spoken not because it was beneficial, but because you felt pressured to respond? We live in a world that rewards noise, reactions, and constant explanations. Yet Allah calls us to something far more dignified and far more powerful. Sometimes the strongest decision you can make is not to speak, not to react, not to defend yourself, but to turn inward and focus on your own journey with Allah. Silence is not weakness. Silence is trust. Silence is wisdom. Silence is choosing Allah over your ego, your emotions, and the expectations of people. Today, I want to walk with you through lessons that will help you protect your heart, guard your focus, and free yourself from the exhaustion of unnecessary words so that you can live with clarity, peace, and deep connection with Allah without noise, without fear, and without explaining yourself to the world. My dear brothers and sisters, I want you to understand something very important. Your energy is not unlimited, your emotional strength is not endless, and your time is something you can never get back once it is gone. Every breath you take, every emotion you feel, and every moment you live has been given to you by Allah as an amana, a trust for which you will one day be questioned. When you spend your energy reacting to every comment, defending yourself to people, replaying conversations in your mind, or worrying about opinions that do not bring you closer to Allah, you are using up something sacred. I often pause and ask myself before I speak or respond, is this bringing me closer to Allah? Is this helping my akhirah? Is this worth the peace of my heart? And if the answer is no, then choosing silence is not weakness at all. It is wisdom, it is self-respect, and it is a quiet form of worship that protects your heart and preserves the trust Allah placed in you. My dear brothers and sisters, I want you to reflect deeply on this. Not every truth needs to be spoken, not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected, and not every hurtful word needs a response. We often feel that if we stay silent, we are losing something, but in reality, silence can be one of the most powerful forms of worship. When you hold your tongue, even though you could speak, when you choose calm over reaction, and when you step back instead of responding in anger or pain, you are doing something very beloved to Allah. You are saying with your actions, Ya Allah, I trust you to handle this better than my words ever could. Silence protects you from saying something you may regret, from hurting someone unnecessarily, and from earning sins through anger or ego. There are moments when Allah saves your Iman not by giving you the perfect words, but by preventing you from speaking at all. This kind of silence is not empty, it is full of patience, full of trust, and full of reward, because Allah sees what you restrained even when no one else does. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the most exhausting things we do to ourselves is feeling that we must explain our lives to everyone. We feel pressured to share our struggles, justify our choices, and defend our decisions, even with people who do not truly care about our well being. I want you to remember this clearly. Your life is not an open book for everyone to read. Allah did not ask you to give everyone access to your heart, your plans, or your healing. Some journeys are meant to be private, shared only between you and Allah. When Allah guides you or changes your direction, not everyone will understand, and not everyone needs to. Explaining yourself to the wrong people can drain your energy and disturb your peace, while silence can protect your heart and keep your intentions pure. Focus on pleasing Allah, not on convincing people, because when Allah is pleased with you, the approval of others no longer controls your peace. My dear brothers and sisters, I want you to listen to this lesson with your heart, not just your ears, because many of us are not struggling in our lives because we are bad people or because our Iman is weak, but because our hearts are constantly distracted. Shaitan is very intelligent and he understands human psychology very well. He knows that if he comes to you with something clearly haram, you may recognize it immediately and stay away. So instead, he comes quietly, slowly, and subtly through distraction. He fills your mind with things that appear small and harmless at first. What someone said about you, how someone looked at you, how someone treated you, whether you were respected or ignored, what people might be thinking about you, what you should have said differently, or what you will say next time. He keeps your thoughts busy replaying conversations that are already over and worrying about situations that may never even happen. Slowly, without you realizing it, your heart becomes occupied with people instead of Allah, with reactions instead of reflection, and with noise instead of remembrance. You may notice that your salah feels rushed, your dua feels heavy on your tongue, your concentration disappears quickly, and your heart feels tired and unsettled even though you are trying to do the right things. Many people tell me they feel spiritually drained, emotionally exhausted, and constantly overwhelmed, yet they cannot understand why. Very often, it is not because Allah is distant, but because their attention is scattered everywhere. When your mind is constantly full of noise, there is very little space left for Allah to settle in your heart. Shaitan understands that a distracted heart is easier to weaken than a sinful one because distraction slowly drains your spiritual strength without making you feel alarmed. Sin often triggers guilt and repentance, but distraction feels normal, so it continues quietly until you feel empty inside. You wake up tired, you feel restless during the day, and you go to sleep with a heavy heart, not because Allah has abandoned you, but because your heart has been pulled in too many directions at the same time. This is why learning to stay silent and focus on your own life is not just good advice or self care, it is a form of protection for your soul. When you choose not to react to everything, not to engage in unnecessary conversations, not to chase every explanation, and not to give your emotions to every situation, you are reclaiming something very precious, your heart. Silence creates space, and space allows reflection. Reflection allows awareness, and awareness gently brings you back to Allah. When the noise begins to reduce, you start to hear your own thoughts again. You begin to recognize your intentions more clearly, and you start to notice where Allah is calling you to grow, to heal, to repent, or to change. Focusing on your own journey does not mean that you stop caring about people or become cold or selfish. It means you stop losing yourself in things that do not improve your akhirah. It means you understand that your heart has limits, your emotional capacity has limits, and Allah did not create you to carry the weight of everyone's words, opinions, and expectations. When you protect your focus, something beautiful happens. Your worship becomes deeper, your dua becomes more sincere, your thoughts become calmer, and your heart feels lighter. And this is because a focused heart is easier for Allah to guide, easier for Him to heal, and easier for Him to fill with peace. My dear brothers and sisters, I want you to know something that will bring a lot of relief to your heart if you truly understand it. Real growth is quiet, and most of the important changes Allah makes in your life happen far away from the eyes of people. We live in a world that teaches us that if something is not seen, announced, or acknowledged, then it does not matter. But this is not how Allah works. Allah works in the unseen. He changes hearts slowly, gently, and privately. He heals wounds that no one else even knows exist. The tears you cry alone, the moments when your chest feels heavy and you turn only to Allah, the silent struggle you go through to control your anger, your tongue, your desires, or your emotions. These moments may feel small to you, but they are enormous in the sight of Allah. Sometimes you may feel frustrated because no one sees how hard you are trying. No one understands how much effort it takes for you just to stay patient, to stay kind, to stay focused on Allah. But I want you to remember that Allah never overlooks sincere effort, especially when it is done quietly for His sake. In fact, when growth is quiet, it is often more sincere because you are not doing it to be praised, noticed, or validated. Silence protects your intention. When you speak too much about your journey, you invite people into a process that is still fragile, still developing, and people's opinions, whether positive or negative, can easily disturb your heart. Comparison creeps in, self doubt grows, and suddenly you are measuring your progress through people instead of through Allah. But when you stay silent and focus on your own life, your growth becomes between you and Allah alone. You are no longer performing, you are transforming. Allah may place you in seasons where nothing exciting seems to be happening on the outside, yet inside, He is reshaping your priorities, softening your heart, teaching you humility, patience, and trust. These seasons can feel lonely because you feel unseen and unsupported, but they are often the most important seasons of your life. Just like seeds grow underground before anything appears on the surface, your spiritual growth also happens beneath the surface first. No one praises a seed while it is buried in the soil, yet that hidden stage is necessary for anything beautiful to grow later. Sometimes Allah keeps your growth hidden to protect you, to protect your sincerity, and to protect you from the pressure of expectations. You may notice that your reactions slowly change. You are not as quick to argue, not as quick to defend yourself, not as easily hurt as before. Your heart becomes calmer, your trust in Allah becomes deeper, and your reliance on people begins to fade. These are signs of growth, even if no one applauds them. When you focus on your own journey and remain silent, you give Allah full access to your heart. You allow Him to teach you lessons without distraction, to heal you without interruption, and to strengthen you without noise. And one day, without announcing it, without explaining it, and without even realizing when it happened, you will look back and recognize that Allah has changed you completely. You will realize that you are more peaceful, more grounded, and more connected to Him than you were before. This is the beauty of silent growth. It lasts. It is sincere and it brings deep inner peace because it was shaped by Allah alone, not by the approval or attention of people. I want to speak to you about something that goes against what the world constantly teaches us, yet it is one of the strongest spiritual muscles you can ever build, and that is the strength of not responding. We have been conditioned to believe that strength means speaking back, defending ourselves, proving our point, correcting every misunderstanding, and making sure people know our side of the story. But Islam teaches us something far deeper and far more dignified. Sometimes strength is silence. Sometimes strength is walking away when you know you could speak. Sometimes strength is trusting Allah to handle what you cannot fix with words. Not responding does not mean you agree, and it does not mean you were defeated. It often means you were wise enough to protect your heart. Many of the emotional wounds we carry come from words spoken in moments of pain, anger, or ego. Words that we cannot take back once they leave our mouths. Allah, in His mercy, sometimes saves us, not by giving us the perfect response, but by placing calm in our hearts and closing our tongues. When you do not respond, you are choosing restraint over reaction, patience over impulse, and trust over control. And this is not easy. Silence requires far more strength than speaking, because silence forces you to sit with discomfort, to surrender the need to be understood, and to accept that not everyone will know your truth. But Allah knows your truth. and that is enough. When you remain silent for the sake of Allah, you are saying, Ya Allah, you see what they do not see, you know what they deny, and I trust you to take care of this better than I ever could. This level of trust purifies the heart. It removes the burden of constantly defending yourself and places it where it belongs, back with Allah. Not responding also protects you from becoming someone you are not. When we react emotionally, we often speak from pain rather than principle, from hurt rather than wisdom, and later we regret not only what we said, but who we became in that moment. Silence keeps your character intact, it keeps your dignity intact, it keeps your Iman intact. There will be times when people misunderstand you, accuse you unfairly, or speak about you in ways that hurt deeply, and your nafs will beg you to respond, to explain, to correct. But ask yourself gently in those moments, will my response bring me closer to Allah, or will it only satisfy my ego? Often, silence is the answer that brings the most peace. Allah never asked us to win every argument. He asked us to protect our hearts and our character. When you choose silence, you give Allah space to work in ways you cannot see. He may change hearts, He may reveal truth, or He may simply protect you from further harm. But His justice is never delayed without wisdom. I have learned that Allah often defends the servant who remains quiet in ways that speech never could. When you stop responding, you stop feeding negativity, you stop reopening wounds, and you stop giving your emotional energy to people who may not deserve it. Silence creates distance between you and what harms you, and that distance is sometimes exactly what your heart needs to heal. Over time, you will notice something beautiful happen. Your need to explain yourself will fade, your reliance on people's validation will weaken, and your trust in Allah will strengthen. You will feel lighter, calmer, and more grounded because you are no longer carrying battles that were never yours to fight. Not responding teaches you surrender, and surrender brings peace. When Allah becomes the one you rely on to speak for you, defend you, and justify you, your heart finally rests. This is not weakness, this is strength rooted in faith, this is power wrapped in humility. This is the kind of strength that transforms hearts, elevates character, and draws you closer to Allah without making a sound. I want to end with a truth that changes everything once it settles deeply in your heart. When Allah becomes your focus, everything else in your life begins to fall into its proper place. So many of us feel overwhelmed, anxious, restless, and emotionally exhausted, not because our lives are empty, but because our focus is scattered. Our hearts are pulled in too many directions toward people's opinions, expectations, disappointments, comparisons, fears, and what ifs. We wake up thinking about what others think of us. We go to sleep replaying conversations, and in between, we carry a heavy emotional weight that Allah never asked us to carry. But when you slowly and intentionally bring your focus back to Allah, something remarkable happens inside you. You begin to feel anchored. You are no longer floating from one emotional reaction to another because your heart has found its center again. Focusing on Allah does not mean your problems disappear, but it means they no longer define you. It means people's words lose their sharpness because they are no longer the loudest voice in your life. When Allah is your focus, you stop chasing approval because you already know who you belong to. You stop needing constant reassurance because your heart finds comfort in remembrance. You stop explaining yourself to everyone because Allah already knows your intentions. This shift does not happen overnight. It happens quietly, gradually, as you choose Allah again and again over noise, over reactions, over distractions. When you focus on Allah, silence becomes natural, not forced, because your heart is no longer begging to be heard by people, it feels heard by its creator. You begin to realize that not every thought deserves attention, not every emotion deserves action, and not every situation deserves your words. This clarity brings peace. Your decisions become calmer, your reactions softer, and your life more intentional. You begin to live with purpose rather than pressure. Focusing on Allah also teaches you contentment. You stop comparing your journey to others because you trust that Allah knows exactly where you are and where you need to go. You stop rushing your growth because you trust His timing. You stop fearing the future excessively because you know the one who holds it. Even hardship feels different when Allah is your focus, not lighter but meaningful. Pain no longer feels random, it feels purposeful. Silence in hardship becomes an act of trust rather than suppression. You learn to sit with discomfort without panic because you believe Allah is present even in the silence. When Allah becomes your focus, your inner world changes before your outer world ever does. You may still face misunderstanding, loss, or delay, but your heart is no longer fragile. It becomes steady. It becomes grounded. It becomes resilient. You start to respond rather than react, to reflect rather than explode, to surrender rather than resist. This is where true peace lives, not in controlling outcomes, but in trusting Allah with them. My dear brothers and sisters, the world will always be loud, opinions will always exist, and distractions will never end, but you do not have to give them your heart. Your heart was created to remember Allah, to rely on Him, and to find rest with Him. When you focus on Allah, silence is no longer something you fear, it becomes a space where your heart breathes. And in that silence, Allah places clarity, strength, and a peace that cannot be explained, only felt. This is the greatest success: a heart that is focused, a soul that is anchored, and a life that moves forward quietly, confidently, and completely trusting Allah. My dear brothers and sisters, as we come to the end of this reminder, I want you to pause and take a deep breath, because what you have heard today is not about changing the world around you. It is about protecting the world inside you. You were not created to live exhausted, constantly reacting, constantly explaining, constantly carrying the weight of things Allah never placed on your shoulders. You were created to know Allah, to walk toward Him with focus, dignity, and trust. When you choose silence for His sake, when you stop chasing every opinion, when you focus on your own growth and your own relationship with Allah, something beautiful happens. Your heart becomes lighter, your mind becomes clearer, and your soul finds rest. You begin to understand that not every battle needs your voice, not every situation needs your response, and not every person deserves access to your heart. Allah sees what you restrain, He knows what you endure, and He rewards what you surrender for His sake. So move forward quietly, with confidence, with trust, and with purpose. Focus on Allah, focus on becoming better, and let silence protect you where words never could. Because when Allah is with you, when Allah knows your intention, and when Allah speaks on your behalf, you never need to explain yourself to the world.